Rakarsh, and this is my final, for now, review of Richard Kalich, the Assisted Living Facility Library is the name of the book. I've already spoken about it a little bit, and I've spoken a lot about Kalich, and I've spoken about a lot of the mysterious stuff with Kalich, the way he has of insinuating himself into the mind and life of the reader. But I'm going to try to be a little more straightforward and informative in this. So I'm laying down. Uh, this is this review. I'm going to be just straightforward. Now, Kalich has written had written several books before this, and there's one that I haven't read. The Zoo, I think it's called, or I don't know, something with a zoo. But I don't know how it connects with the others. He doesn't even talk about it much. And Kalich is one of those writers who talks about himself a lot in his own life, and his books are about his life or a version of his life. The first novel that, well, I guess it's his second novel, but the one that made him, that put him on the literary map, particularly overseas, which is understandable, in that it's a book of that in a country like the United States where you can't say shit on television, is likely to be a little bit. I don't know what to do with this hand. Anyway, maybe I'll put it over here. Okay, my hand's over here. The this the book is called The Nihilist, a wonderful title and a wonderful book. If you're not going into your reading looking for something uplifting or instructive, and if you're looking into Nihilist and you find it instructive, you need help. It's a book about extraordinary cruelty, about someone who works for the city of New York in the social services department, who finds someone in a wheelchair that needs social services help, and he takes over this guy's case and basically tortures him throughout the book in various imaginative ways, and I don't think that I could go into certain depths about that book, but it's a book, it's a classic of cruelty, and Kalich thought it up, and later on, because Kalich is so autobiographical, in one of his other books, his brother is, maybe even two or three times, his brother's reaction. He's got a twin brother, also a writer named Robert Kalich. Maybe. I haven't actually checked on whether that's true or not, but I am going to. And I know that Betimes Book just put out a book by Robert Kalich, and according to everything from Richard Kalich, Robert is kind of, he doesn't actually call him a hack, but he, basically says he writes, just crap. Well, he doesn't even say crap, but popular stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what Betimes published, what Robert came up with. Maybe Robert got inspired. Maybe Richard is Robert. I don't know. And it didn't occur to me to look into that before I did this review. But in this book, it starts, this is his latest book, it starts with a note from the assisted living facility telling them that they can accommodate his every request, but he can't bring all of his books. He's got to cull his library down to 100 books. And that's something that occurs throughout. And what's interesting about it is when he talks about the books, which ones he chooses, and it leads to him talking about his own books and what he compares them to. He's been compared to The Dwarf by Par Lagerkvist, which he loves. and I would call that a career making thing. You know, writers are often unpublished their whole life, or they get a little something published that doesn't get much attention. But you know, if you're one time compared by important people or someone really important, this is someone in was it Norway? Yeah, to Par Lagerkvist. Maybe it was Sweden. I don't remember. But and I should know that because I read that book on the back of a Greyhound bus, and The Dwarf by Par Lagerkvist. Loved it, and you know that could be like the only thing that ever happens in his whole life that's to the good, that it's affirming, and you know that tells him he is a writer and so on. But anyway, he also has a couple of great pages about David Markson and their friendship, which may or may not have lasted. I don't know. But the at the beginning of the book, he also talks about coming across a lady laying. I think she was just laying in the street. Um, she's a catatonic schizophrenic, and just called Mother. And she's looking at a boy, and he figures out that they're together. And so he takes them into his house, basically so that he can be like his character in um, Neil's Theat, a guy named Haberman. And because this is a postmodern book, um, he takes them into his house, or does he? I guess he does. And there, because he wants to write a book called The Assisted um, Living Facility Library, within which is a book entitled Mother Love. And what he's going to do is torment the mother using the child. At one point, she's seated on a block of ice, and well, I don't know. I don't want. Is that kind of detail important, or does it ruin the book? Is that a spoiler? Because heat is involved as well. You know, when the ice thing wears off, you know, they go into the heat thing. It's torture. It's sheer torture. But the there's just the occasional hilarity in the cruelty itself, but there's also early in the book, once he's got Mother and the boy, he certain things happen. He comes to the conclusion that life is just, you know, over for him. Um, and I'm not sure why at that moment. You know, I could read it, and I don't think it would explain why at that moment he came to that hopelessness. But then suddenly he says, "But there's still Mother and the boy." You know, so he's still got the novel to act out and create, and or he's still got the cruelty, because what he's going to do, he's going to bring Haberman in to torment the mother and the boy. But what happens is he can't really distinguish himself from Haberman. They work together, and I guess while they're working together, he's probably distinguishing, or maybe not. But his character from his first great novel is going to repeat some horrific, tormenting scenes for no particular reason, except something about developing or trying to bring his mind and body together. This part of the book, I don't know. He doesn't really stick with any one thing for long throughout the book, and it's a short book, and you can read it way too fast, and and you'll need to read it again, as I do, and I didn't read it that fast either, but I want to understand more than I do about him, but in in the book, it becomes well. Let me just find something that I marked, because it's just pure Kalichery. Um, he's epiphanic. Epiphanic. He has an epiphany, um, and the epiphany is this. First and foremost, Kalich has to free himself from Haberman. He's got to free himself from his fictional character. Next page, another epiphany. And just as Kalich trashed his books, the books he couldn't take to the library, to the assisted living facility library, he must now trash Mother and the boy. At this point, Mother and the boy have been separated. Mother's been lost in Central Park in a place called the Ramble, and she saved Kalich. She obviously was familiar with the area. Found an escape route when they came across 4 or 5 scary people, and she got them out of there, but she stayed. So Kalich returns with the boy, and he keeps the boy. We're on page 111 now out of 142. And just as Kalich trashed his books, he must now trash Mother and the boy. He must let go of them as fictional representations and see them for who they are, people. So that's an epiphany as well. So he's got to free himself from Haberman, and he also has to let go of these people that he found in order to bring into his apartment in order to write the novel that he wants to write called Mother Love, that involves Haberman and him subjecting the mother to various torments having to do with raising a child and having a child. So, another epiphany. Next sentence. In order to achieve what he has envisioned from the start, Kalich must become Haberman, not in words, but in deeds. Not in his mind, but in his life. So on one full page, he must free himself from Haberman. He must take these people who are fictional representations and see them for who they are, people, and he must become Haberman. It's sheer madness. And after that, he goes into the living facility, and you find out indirectly, sort of, that he's raised the boy. He for a few pages, he's talking about having to get rid of or take care of the boy before he gets into the facility, when he's got to do something with the boy. And he becomes a little sentimental, and he hears a bird chirp where he normally wouldn't. He questions his life, and then he comes up with nothing new. It was worth it to be the way he was, which I've gone into in other videos. But chiefly, a writer who most often doesn't write, a reader who reads 10 pages a day of great literature, for sure, every single day of his life, and sticks with it. And he agrees with himself that was a good thing to do, but something changes in him. He hears a bird chirp, but he doesn't question anything else, and he doesn't, really, as far as I understand, and I'm not sure I do understand, but he hears the bird chirp, and it turns out indirectly, he goes to the assisted living facility. He never says what he does with the boy before he goes in. So you find out that what he's done is he sent the boy to school. He's taking care of the boy. He's become the mother. He's become the mother lover. And then in the, there's an end that suggests something. But the mother, she's a schizophrenic, catatonic, and a homeless person. And so she never reappears once she saves them from the Ramble. And Kalich, at the very end, you find out he's taken care of the boy. So I guess you're left to believe that, he learns about the powers of mother love through the tortures that he puts this woman through. And then in the end, he doesn't change a thing except he apparently springs for the money to raise the boy, who visits him, I think, once a week. Did it say that? I think it did. But I just read it for the second time. I read the ending, and I still, have the mentals, the dementals, and so I'm led to believe the mother love is, well, when you don't have a mother, but there is a child, and you got to go to the assisted living facility, you got to do something with the child. And what he did was put the child up at a boarding school where the child has been very successful and done very well and has been taken care of and has made friends and no longer suffers the loss of his mother to such a degree. Um, and so, in the end, Kalich is the mother of mother love. And that's what I make of this book. And I, I, I wonder, you're supposed to recommend a book, but Kalich is a sort of an oddity. And, his books are not very long, and they're not terribly hard to read. His version of postmodernism is, as I've said before, conceptual. And uh, he's not, his sentences are simple. He does not write difficult prose. He's a madman. He's funny. Sometimes uh, it seems like he's almost unintentionally funny, which we have to presume is intentional. But what the hell does it matter if it is? It's funny. It's funny no matter what. Any way you look at it. But I highly recommend this book. But I know someone who read this before his other stuff, and I'm just wondering, what did he make of this without knowing the Kalich of the three books I read? Charlie P., which sort of is dismissed in here in a way. Like twice within 10 pages, he says, that's just what does he call it? A memo? Well, he calls it a parable, but anyway, a just a book of memories or something like that. I can't. He sort of dismisses it. The latest to produce that book, the chief editor of Betimes Books considers that one of her favorites, on and off between that and Penthouse F, which I will give you in his own words. Since I've talked about Neil Aesthete, here's Penthouse F, which is a gas. That I think that may be his most fun book. His best book, Neil Aesthete, Penthouse F, I think. But this one, I can't separate them from the rest. And this book doesn't try to separate itself from the rest. But he says, in your novel Penthouse F, he's talking to himself, you characterize yourself as fictional. But in this book, you establish the same character, the writer, Richard Kalich, as real from the start. In fact, you take pains to identify the book as a biographical narrative, and yet you repeat many of the same incidents and life experiences you depicted in the novel. I was confused at first. It's not like you to err in this way. Either your Richard Kalich is imagined, as in Penthouse F, or real. But the way you have it with this book, it seems you want it both ways. All those readers who have read Penthouse F will spot this quickly. Wait a minute, he's not saying that. Who's saying that? The copyist, who's a critic as well. But it's a very perceptive sort of thing. And here's where Kalich doesn't answer this. He doesn't give a hint of being perturbed. If anything, there's a bemused expression on his face. I think it's there often. But once again, in this case with the copyist Lee, if not himself, there's confusion between fiction and reality, art and life. And of course, that is the challenge of this book. Can Kalich transcend the mind-body split? Can he become Haberman? Even at this late stage, he still doesn't know. Only finishing the book will tell him. And you know what? Finishing the book may tell him and you, but I don't know. I recommend reading the trilogy and then the assisted living facility library, and you get an entire writer of the modern era and a serious writer with some interesting, serious problems and some interesting lack of solutions and some interesting torments, both fictional and probably not. I don't know. Looks happy in the picture. I'll show that again. Look at him. Doesn't he look like a happy guy? My hand is shaking it. There, I gotta. Wow, that's kind of a weird thing. Let's try this hand. That's fine. This hand. Anyway, that's appropriate because the guy leaves off in assisted living facility, and he probably shakes. That's that's it for me and Kalich. I think I've broken the spell. I'll be keeping him around. I'll reread his books on occasion. That's for sure. And I recommend highly that you buy the trilogy and then read the assisted living facility library. Maybe we'll get to Robert Kalich next.